Hey, what is up, everybody? Nimager here, and we are going to be walking through another faction of Faction Wars Hard today, focusing on the Sylvan Watchers. Again, as we get into this, I'm going to run through each stage, show you what I did to clear those stages. Overall, not covering any free-to-play strategies. I'm going to say what I did, any tips and tricks that I found out about specific champions or specific waves as I went through the stages. And I'm also not going to be covering a lot of champions that I don't own. Again, I didn't have that experience myself. So if there's certain champions from this list that I might be missing but would have made the stage a lot easier, I might not be mentioning those as I get into it. So we'll start with the first stages and we'll cover them pretty quickly. Stage 1, healing your champions. Healing in this faction is going to be pretty easy. Keynote is Elva. She's going to be on her passive, giving you a heal of 10% of max HP every time they start their turn. She's going to be placing continuous heals with A1. If you go through her a little bit, it's pretty easy. Another one there is Padraig. He's going to be taking a fully restore the max HP and placing a continuous heal on all your champions. I used those two, ran through the stage. You do have to reduce your damage a little bit to be able to get this amount of healing in just stage 1, but overall, not too difficult to go through. Stage 2, 10 freeze debuffs. If we look at the freeze for the faction, you pretty much have one option. His name is Creodan. He's going to get this done really easily. The A2 is attack all enemies 2 times, each hit placing 45%, booking up another 20, 65% chance of placing a freeze. When he does this, he's pretty much going to freeze every single champion. Do it 2 or 3 times on the wave, and you're going to be done. Stage 3, decrease speed debuffs. Here, if we look at the decrease speed for the faction, an old fusion, going to be the easiest one. A2 is attack all enemies, placing decreased speed. Do it 2 times, you're going to have it done. Another shout will be Feral. He's going to have the decreased speed on the A1. If you happen to be a spender on the game and you have the Saoirse, attack all enemies, decrease speed on the A3. Any of those combinations of champions going to be pretty easy. A few of the epics can get it done as well. I just happen to use Estrid the entire time. Stage 4, manipulating buff or debuff duration. This one is always a little bit tricky as you're getting into it. One of the masteries that increases your buff duration is going to be the easiest as you get into the stage. If we go into the other effects for positive, you can actually search by increased buff duration. If you have the Unity, he's going to be pretty good for, in general, this entire faction, as he's just going to be doing a ton of damage. On the A2, if the target is an enemy, decrease the duration of all buffs by 1 turn. If it's an ally, increasing the duration, going to make it pretty easy. Look at that mastery I was talking about. If I can find it, lasting gifts, 30% chance to extend the duration of any buff cast by this champion. There are a lot of buffs in the Sylvan Watcher faction, so any combination of the debuff or buff duration increases or decreases along with that mastery, gonna get it done. If we look at the debuff duration, you've got Saoirse on here again, so you can use her as well, with the only other one being the Caldor. Stage 5, manipulating skill cooldowns. Overall, not too hard if you've done Emic. On the A2, going to be placing a shield, decreasing the cooldown of all ally skills except his by 1 turn. Do that a few times and you'll end up rolling through the stage fairly easily. If you happen to not do that fusion, you can also use Padraig on the A1. He's going to have the 25% chance of decreasing the skill's cooldown. Or the Void, you can use Nia. She's going to remove all debuffs and decreases the cooldown of all their skills by 2 turns as well. Stage 6, manipulate turn meters. Again, Estrid is going to be the MVP here. On the A3, increase speed, increase attack, increase turn meter. On the A2, decrease turn meter. Gets that stage done fairly quickly. If we do look at some of the other champions and you go into the turn meter fill, you can see a lot of champions have that. We called them out before. If you've got a Creodan, he's going to be filling turn meters on the A3 by 15%. one of those champions, either Astrid or him, is going to be able to clear this stage fairly easily. Stage 7, boss, not too bad. You'll see for all the bosses, I decided to use Kaldor. He is a boss killing machine. He can almost, or in better gear, one-shot the final boss in this faction, so I found it fairly easy going through the bosses. I don't think it's too hard just with the amount of support that you can throw at any DPS. You can even throw a Dithy in here, which I decided to use for all the bosses. If you put this champion in a Cat's Gaze and 9-piece Merciless, he can eventually get enough turns during a run to just one-shot the boss without any interruption, so he himself can deal enough damage to the boss with enough support and a little bit of luck with the 9-piece Merciless procs. Stage 8 is another heal one. Throw in your same champions for support. Just want to make sure that you get the heal done as you're checking throughout the stage before you end up killing all the enemies. Stage 9 is freeze debuffs. Again, you're going to throw in your Creadan, you're going to freeze the enemies, and you're going to move on to Stage 10, which is using epic champions. Here it's going to be pretty easy. Some notable epics we've already called out. Dithy, one of the better damage dealers in the game for an epic, pretty much legendary status. You got your Creadan, who's going to be able to control the waves. I often use Duodan the Runic. If you don't know, he's got a taunt, strengthen, and counterattack. He's going to be placing a shield on your team as well, and he's going to be removing debuffs from allies as a 1, which also will proc with counterattacks. I used those 3 to go through this stage. Thorn Golem, he was also a fusion after I completed this, but he's going to have an increased defense, counterattack, and resistance. He's going to have an attack with a fear, and he's going to have a leech, so he's another good shout to run through this stage. 11, manipulating turn meter. Again, Astrid, any of the champs we talked about previously, throw them in there, put the Creadan in there, use their skills a few times. You just might have to reduce your damage while you're getting those turn meter increases off. Stage 12, manipulating skill cooldowns. Same thing again. Throw out the Padraig, throw in the Emic, throw in anybody in Merciless if you don't have those, and you're just going to have to hope for the amount of procs you need by the time the wave ends. Being stage 12, there's not too many hard waves to go through where you're really going to get stuck. Stage 13, we've done this again, buff and debuff duration. Throw in the same champions. There's plenty of buffs in the faction with the Lasting Gifts Mastery, or any of the champions talked about previously. Just doing it a few more times than what previously done. That'll take you into stage 14. Again, I abused Kaldor. He one-shots the boss. The blue boss isn't necessarily too bad. You can throw in your Dithy. You can see I've pulled a nice since I've completed that as well. If you want, you can just throw him in there. Throw in 2 Dithys if you got them. They're going to end up clearing the boss. Stage 15, beat it with all champions alive. Here I will show off stage 15's wave. I do remember this stage being a little more difficult than I had anticipated, trying to keep everybody alive. If you let the Erics on the first wave start dealing damage, he's going to deal a significant amount of damage because any HP champion in the Faction Wars is going to have way more than you might have on your champions in PvP, so their damage is going to seem a little higher. Wave 2, if Crixia ends up being able to go before your nukers and lock you out, Helicat's going to throw on some block damage, and you're actually going to take a decent bit of damage from the candy. It's not a terrible wave to get through, but it can be tricky. And then wave 3, one thing you just want to avoid is the damage from the Rhodos. Again, you can't debuff this couple. They're going to remove it at the start. And you're also going to have to watch out for Morrigan. She's going to be placing a block healing on you that is protected. So if you let one of your champions get low, or they are low going into this wave, you're not going to be able to heal them back up, and they could end up dying. So you just want to be careful of that. Overall, not a terrible stage to go through, though. Stage 16, ally attacks and counterattacks. If you have Padraig, as I click on the complete wrong champion, he's got the ally attack on the A2, gonna make this very, very easy. If we look at ally attack in the faction, there's not much of it. So it's Padraig or Diana. She, I believe, might have been a fusion champion going in the past, but she's going to have a team up with 2 allies. Again, she's going to make it much easier. I use Pedrig. Diana's another substitute for that. I generally wouldn't recommend looking at this for the counterattack skills in here. You've got that with the Nice on the Form 2. I didn't try him out, but that might make it a little bit easier. But your Thorn Golem and your Duodan aren't going to be doing it for you, so I'd try to pull the Epic or use your Pedrig for stage 16. 17, no weak hits. This stage was awful for me. If you can look at the Void Champions that I have, I've got an Emic as the legendary. I've got a Thorn Golem. I've got a Diana. And they just don't do a ton of damage. What I did end up doing is I have a Tree Shield Knot. He's actually a really good champion for Siege rare posts, so I have a few built. I threw him in there just as some support for the team. Emic, he can do a decent amount of damage on his A2, actually. So if you throw him in a more damage build, you can use him to kind of clear the stages. What I did end up doing was the probable worst version of this was I put a Dithy and a Cat's Gaze. I attempted to clear out the negative affinities with Emic, with Diana, who did not deal, at least in my opinion, too much damage. I also threw in the Thorn Golem and a Tree Shield Knot. I attempted to A1 all the negative affinities down, and then clear out the neutral and positive affinities with Dithy. I wouldn't be joking if I said I reset this stage about 100+ times to be able to get through it. If you've got some better ways to get through it, let me know. But overall, I've just found this to be a horrible, no weak hit stage. 18, placing Taunt, not going to be too bad. If you go to the buffs and you look at Taunt, Emic's going to be able to place it. He was a fusion, pretty easy on the A3. And your Epic version, the Duodan, is going to place it on the A3 as well. Again, you only got to do it 4 times, so it's a few cycles. There's a few other champs that you can do it, like Ruark. He's going to have another taunt on the A3 as well. 19, defeat 3 enemies while your champions are under 7 or more buffs. This one, I used Kaldor. If you use the A2 on himself, what's going to happen is you're going to place a ton of continuous heals on him, boost his turn meter, and pretty much take an extra turn, which is going to let you A3 an enemy, and it's going to remove them from the fight because it does so much damage. Prior to that, you can use the Estrid to give you an increased speed and increase attack. You can use the Emic, who's going to place a shield and an unkillable on your champions. Overall, not a very hard one. You've got a ton of buffs, Feral adding 2 extra ones, a ton of buffs in the faction. So the hardest part is not going to be getting your buffs. It's just going to be making sure that you can clear the wave. With it, if we look at this, what I ended up doing was trying to get this all on stage 1. So just stacking up buffs, trying to one-shot the wave. The Raglan makes it a little bit hard sometimes if you let her pop off and get some healing and revives. Galathyr as well. But getting 7 buffs, one-shotting a Yakarl and an Errol isn't actually that bad. You can even find some strategies where letting the Raglan or Galathyr revive those 2 and just killing them again is going to make you complete this. The second wave is a little bit of a tougher wave. If you let the Kaja take a turn, she's going to be cleansing, boosting turn meter. Once you kill them all, your Siegfriend's going to transform, so you want to try to proc his block damage and take him out before them. It's just a little bit tricky to deal with, but if you know how to attack it, making sure you're looking at the Timit and Kaja combo, which is a little bit underrated in my opinion. They can do a lot of control and make it a little bit hard. So if you lose control during this wave, it's very hard to get back. Wave 3, this is one of the easier wave 3s that they kind of put you with a whole faction unity setup going. Fina, obviously, if she takes a turn, she's going to be doing a ton of buffs. If you try to one-shot the entire team, you're going to have the Arbiter left with the Unkillable due to the Incarnate passive. She's going to revive the team, but overall, I find it pretty easy to just control this wave. They're all pretty squishy. You can nuke them down. Not one of the harder faction waves, in a sense. Stage 20, keeping all of your champions above 75% HP. This one's not too bad. You can take your Emic, you can throw him in a giant bolster set, you could have him open with the A2 to place a shield on all your champions, and you can take the Daithy, put him in Merciless. You can take your Kaldor or any of the nukers, throw him down. Another good one would be the Creodan. You can roll through, and he can place some CC on the waves, so you're not going to be taking damage. One thing to note, the waves are a little bit hard here, and Daithy, since he's taking so many turns, he can actually outrun all of his shields, so he's left pretty vulnerable if any of the enemies take a turn. If we look at the wave for this one, again, the Lizard Wave isn't too bad. Sulfurion and Lazarius, if you let him take some turns, can gain some control in the fight. If you let Chugger go get his passive off and he starts sleeping you every time you try to do it, going to be a little difficult, but overall, if you're faster than the wave, not too bad. Second wave, one thing you want to make sure is that you're not proccing the Marius counterattacks. If you try to decrease his turn meter, he could end up dealing a little bit of damage to you. If you let Mezimel go, she's going to be ignoring a lot of things with her A2 and A3 combination, and that'll take you below 75% HP just with one of those, so make sure you're not letting her go, CCing her, or watching out for that. For this one, this wave is the hardest for me. If we look at Supreme Gaelic, and we look at his passive, whenever this champion receives pretty much any CC, instantly remove it, heal him, and give him a turn. That's pretty difficult because if you try to CC this final wave, he's going to take a turn, probably deal enough damage to take you below 75% HP, and you've got to watch out for the Aragaz as well. He's going to have the faction unity to be whenever an ally kills an enemy, gives him an instant turn once per round. If he gets that instant turn and he starts getting off some counterattacks or abilities, he's going to deal a lot of damage. So usually with this wave, what I try to do is nuke the Gaelic down and then CC the wave as much as possible. So you can open up with the Daithy, try to just chain some A1s into the Gaelic, knock them down. Then once you do that, you can open up after the Gaelic is down with the Creodan freeze. You can just pump your shields on Emic and hope that they don't deal enough damage. But I think your best bet's going to be try to nuke down Gaelic and then get some CC out to control the wave. If you're able to do that, it's not too terribly difficult of a stage. 21, a little bit harder boss. This one, he's going to have the attack and ignore defense, so he's dealing a lot of damage. He's going to be transferring all the debuffs, which can't be resisted, fearing and stunning most of your team. He's having a reflect damage and pain link to kill a lot of your nukers. And he's going to be gaining turn meter every time he's attacked. He's a little bit difficult to deal with. As I mentioned before, if you got Kaldor, he's going to 1 or 2 shot this boss. If you don't have Kaldor, put Daithy in some really good gear. If you take his A3 to open up, place the A2, he's going to place the decreased defense and get an extra turn almost guaranteed. And you can chain some A1s to get a 10% chance of extra turn. Throw him in Merciless set. He's going to get more chance of the extra turns. Chain the A3 into A2 into A1. There are runs where you can just get the best luck possible. You're going to complete the stage with just him going, and it won't be too bad. Some key notes is Emic's going to place your unkillable on your champions, so you don't have to worry about dying too much to the reflect damage or pain link. If you've got your Padraig, the ally attack's going to let you deal a decent chunk of damage. However, as you are attacking this boss, just note you're going to be giving him a large amount of turn meter. Elva's going to be another good one for removing and cleansing your team, and then healing and keeping your team up. So overall, not too bad of a faction for me, other than the weak hit stage I believe was the hardest and worst by far. You'll see there's no purple boss in here, so all the bosses generally burn down to just deal as much damage as can with a little bit of control. None of them have anywhere near as unfair mechanics as purple boss does. Is there anything left out? Any other tips that could have helped clear some stages or made them a little bit easier? Once you're able to go through it there, Sylvan Watcher, 63 stars. This, I think, was my 2nd or 3rd completed, so overall, pretty decently easy faction, in my opinion. Other than that, thank you for watching this video, and have a good one.